Thank you for joining Wars of the Roses, and this is This Talk of War. Man will be held responsible for what he creates by Frater Cosmos. An article taken from Rosicrucian Digest, Volume 9, Number 6, July 1931. This Talk of War. Man will be held responsible for what he creates by Frater Cosmos. Looking down upon the planet Earth from a psychic viewpoint, high in the heavenly spaces, I see millions and millions of vibrations radiating in all directions from many millions of minds, and I am made extremely unhappy by sensing a destructive thought back of these vibrations. It seems that in so many communities, in so many cities and countries on the earth today, there are individuals and groups of individuals who are talking about the next great war, as though it had already been decreed and proclaimed. There is an almost unanimous agreement among these prophesiers of war that the great conflagration will take place sometime during the end of 1932 or at the beginning of 1933. The date has been more or less definitely fixed by some of these prophets, who meddle from time to time with the unknown quantity of the art of astrology, and who think they have discerned in the contemplated positions of the planets a cause for war, and through their voluble writings and bombastic warnings, they have spread a universal fear regarding a probable war and have had the satisfaction of seeing their prophetic dates accepted as a cosmic proclamation. The unthinking multitudes have seized hold of these dates and these warnings, and with an uncanny as well as an unreasonable sense of security in their ability to predict the future, have repeated and repeated the prediction until half the world is now laboring under the belief that the next great war is inevitable during 1932 or 1933. If some great mystic principle or spiritual illumination or some superhuman motive could have moved these same people to look forward to and anticipate worldwide peace and love with prosperity and happiness, and if these same persons would have started to proclaim the coming of such peace and happiness with the same serious conviction and the same volubility, the same earnestness and enthusiasm, there is no telling what marvelous accomplishments might result. It does seem strange how humans, with their superior intellect and their conscious knowledge of the power of their minds, are so unmindful of the fact that so far as earthly conditions and mutual human relationship are concerned, and so far as the individual destiny of human beings, separated or in groups of national and continental units, is concerned, they are responsible for the creation of conditions that affect all of them. Years ago, when the last great war was in its inception, the Rosicrucian magazine, published by AMORC, printed an article with the title, "War, a Condition of Mind." What was said in regard to man's individual relationship to national affairs at that time may be said at the present time with even more seriousness. War is not only a condition of mind in its inception, but a condition almost wholly of the human mind, and is unquestionably a result of man's mental creation. During the progress of the last World War, individuals and nations attempted to discover the national cause of war, or the political, financial, or economic cause of the war. Each nation of people attempted to blame those nations that were associated with the opposing countries. So-called lords of war, or kings of countries, industries, and the possessors of great fortunes were blamed as the creators of the war. Capital and labor accused each other. The clergymen of the churches accused the evil influences of the ungodly. The atheists and non-religious accused the churches and the spiritual leaders. The anarchists accused the rulers of governments, while the rulers in turn accused the leaders of liberal governments. The war ended, and historians, investigators, scientists, and rational thinkers searched all documents, all records, all sources of information to try and determine how and why such a great war originated. No national nor international agreement in regard to the cause of the war has ever been decided upon. Reviewing the history of every war of which we have any notation or any records dating back to the earliest conflicts of civilization, we find it impossible to definitely accuse any one of the armies, nations, or groups of people involved as being the prime movers and original creators of these wars. Why? Because war is not created in the council chambers of any nation, at the round table of any group of diplomats, or in the dark chamber of any group of restless libertines, nor in the Wall Street offices of capital, or the noonday sessions of the working class. War is created only and wholly by the condition of mind of the multitudes, and without this creative power focalized upon the belief in war, the possibility of war, and the tolerance of war, there could be no war in any land among any people or nations of peoples. Here in America, or throughout the North American continent, there is the utmost desire for peace in the heart of every loyal citizen. It is not a question of patriotism, for patriotic emotionalism is a natural and inherent power and attribute in the being of every sane and living citizen, be he mystic, spiritual leader, laborer, capitalist, or political ruler. The Rosicrucian, regardless of his high spiritual development or his continued prayer for peace, is a patriot in every sense of the word and is ready to use every means at his command to protect the integrity of his home, the integrity of his state, and the integrity of his country, and to preserve the foundation and the honor, the peace, power, and happiness of his country, even at the sacrifice of his life and the sacrifice of the principles that he holds dear. But until there is a call for him to serve his country, or until there is an actual state of warfare in which he voluntarily and wholeheartedly participates as a true patriot, he prays for peace, talks of peace, and longs to see peace maintained. War is born, first of all, in the mind of man. Before it is born, it must be conceived and matured from its embryonic state to that degree or stage of maturity where it can no longer remain unborn, but must cast itself into the world of activity and demonstrate its cruel personality. The conception of war in the human mind is started by the fertilizing of the human consciousness with thoughts of intolerance, hatred, unholy ambition, unnatural aggression, and brutal conceit. How many of those who glibly talk of the possibility of the next world war realize that every time they admit in their own minds of the possibility of war, they are helping to create it? How many of these persons know that they are the ones who will be held responsible by the cosmic for whatever conflicts the future may have upon this earth? I say now with all of the understanding and knowledge that the cosmic can reveal, and as a messenger of the great masters, that the cosmic has not ordained another great war. I say, with all of the conviction based upon absolute knowledge, which any human being can obtain through superhuman sources, that in the cosmic book of events and in the Akashic records, no great world war involving the principal civilized peoples of many lands is scheduled to begin next year, or the year thereafter, or any year in the future. The cosmic has taught men in recent years the lessons which they should know and should have in order to help establish and maintain peace. And it is an unquestionable fact that the very ones who participated in the last great war and upon whom the great cosmic lesson about war made its strongest and greatest impression are not the ones who are responsible at the present time for the promulgation of the false idea of an imminent war. Those who have drunk of the bitterness of the cup of war and whom the cosmic allowed to witness the horrors of war are not the ones who consciously or unconsciously conceive, think about, talk of, or anticipate another great war. They know only too well the terrible cost, the enormous price, and the futile waste of war. The present prophecies emanate from those who were either too old or too young to participate in the past war, or who, for other reasons, were safely situated in the security of their homes, and who believe that they have a superior insight because of their distant contact with war conditions, and are capable of judging the trend of human conditions. If we stop and think a moment of a few of the facts taken from the actual records of the last war, we may realize what war really means. The total number of men involved in all the armies that were at war amounted to over 59 million men. These men were the pick of all nations involved, averaging from 16 to 45 years of age. Think of such flowers of manhood in such vast numbers gathered together to destroy each other, instead of attempting to create something beneficial for the human race. Billions upon billions of dollars were burned in smoke and fire, powder and ruined material, leaving absolutely nothing from its expenditure that can ever help the races of men on earth. And there were other billions of dollars lost in business production and in matters that would have benefited all men. Many in the United States think that our total loss of men was but 47,000, the number of men who actually died on the battlefields. But when we add to this number those whose life ended through illness and accident in camps, here in the United States, and in camps in foreign lands or on the high seas, we find that the total loss of men for the United States was over 300,000. Think of this army of men, young and old, but in the prime of life. Even those who were at home had to sacrifice that which would have helped in many human ways in order that money and supplies, food and other things might be sent to the hellfire of the war. The most civilized countries that had established moral and ethical codes for the advancement of civilization abandoned these standards and flung all of their principles and ideals to the high winds and participated in what was nothing more than the primitive, uncivilized ideals of undeveloped manhood. Here in the United States, as in other countries, our churches, our schools, our musical and educational societies, our ethical and cultural movements abandoned all of their heretofore avowed purposes and ideals and urged participation in the lowest principles, the meanest and most sordid actions, and the practice of inhuman acts. The moral standards of men and women, boys and girls, were lowered to the lowest degree. And those practices which in May 1914 were condemned by society and by the average individuals in all civilized lands as immoral, degrading, and of the lowest type, were raised in a few months to aggrandizement and prolific approval. Each civilized country involved in the war turned upon a pivot point in the start of the war and hastily marched backward in all of its cultural and moral and ethical development until all of us were plunged into the very darkness and badness of degraded human debauchery. Is it any wonder that the gangster and the racketeer has been able to advance his theories of life, establish his practice of living, and maintain his dominion and control over our civic affairs? Did we not, in the process of the war, open wide our ethical and moral gardens to the free intrusion of everything that is brutal, inhuman, and unnatural? Are we to have this all over again? Is it true that we are going to have another and still greater war, in comparison to which the last great war will seem like a mere quarrel among the children in a schoolyard? If we are, it will be the result of man's own thinking. Whatever war will come in the future is being created now, this very hour, this very instant, by the attitude that each and every individual in every land takes in regard to war. It was not the assassination of one ruler of Austria and Hungary that started the last war. That incident was but a spark that ignited the accumulated powder of years. Other potentates had been assassinated before him without such international conflict resulting. In 1910, 1911 and 1912 there was evidence aplenty all through Europe that a condition of war was being established in the minds of the people, and by 1914 that mental attitude had reached a condition where it was self-explosive and merely a bugle call to arms was necessary to start the great conflict. Are you going to allow your mind to be inflamed and distorted, your consciousness lowered, your creative power misapplied, your responsibility tried and tested, by permitting the thoughts of war to dominate your thinking? Are you going to listen to the sad and unnecessary prophecies of war and repeat them and add to their strength and power until they produce of their own kind in living manifestations? Stand ready to protect your country. Stand ready to protect the ideals of your nation, of your flag, of your constitution, of your civilization. Always be prepared to defend the honor and integrity of that which holds nations together in peace and honor, but also hold back from your mind any thoughts that will lead to war, that will promote the idea of war, or that will inflame the minds of others toward war, when such war is unnecessary, undesired, and preventable. If your patriotism is normal and natural, and as a true representative of the human brotherhood you are ready at any time to defend your country and your people against the intrusion of the enemy, begin this protection of your national interest by preventing the intrusion of the enemy's thoughts, for there is no greater enemy to your country and to the human race and to the spirit of the human brotherhood than that insidious, subtle foe, the thought of war. Thank you for watching, and please don't forget to share, like, subscribe and comment. And if you can, please consider donating to Wars of the Roses. Links to PayPal and Patreon are in the description. Thank you so very much.